Welcome back to the skating session. I'm Tony Wheeler,
And I'm Thomas Vu.
and today we are going to analyze the entire Grand Prix 2025-2026 rosters. I woke up early this morning expecting the ISU to already have them published. Finally, I think it was around a little bit after 11 our time that it was finally published to the website. I put a tracker on the site so that the minute it updated, it would make this loud noise on my computer so that I would know it was there. Looked at everything pretty briefly, noticed some things right away we'll get into. Some
Yeah.
surprising things. We knew returning skaters were there. Officially, we see Sui and Han are there. Some other interesting choices, I think, for sure. But anyways,
Yeah.
exciting. This is like the Super Bowl kind of for figure skating
Right,
fans.
right, right. It's our
Yeah,
summer Christmas for figure skating fans
yeah,
and the
yeah.
lull of nothing happening. Yeah.
Yeah, or no, I guess this is like the halftime show, and then the rest of the
Okay,
season is like the bigger. Yeah,
yeah.
but we wait for this every year, and in the last few years, the ISU's been pretty clear about when they're going to publish it, and there was an announcement made at least by USFS a few days ago saying today would be the day. I remember, Grand Prix has been around, by the way, this is 30 years. It started in 95, 96. So this is 30 years of the Grand Prix. But I
Oh wow.
remember back in the early 2000s when I had the connections I had within skating, the skaters would tell me way ahead of time, these are the events I'm getting, these are the events. And it would not be published. It would just all of a sudden out of nowhere it would come up. And then I remember a few times there were skaters that were alternates. I remember just for example, I'm going to throw out a name. Jenna McCorkle got an NHK
Oh wow.
trophy assignment as an alternate one year, and I texted her to be like, "Congratulations," and she had no idea that she was assigned. And she all that year, I think she had to withdraw because it was at the same time as British Nationals or something. But just it's come a long way because now the skaters
Mhm.
are notified. It's a big deal. They all post on social media within a few minutes. These are the events. So, with social media, this has
Right.
become much bigger of a deal than it used to be.
I think it's like a good sign of progress that they're understanding more of just what the fandom looks forward to. It's this kind of stuff we always did in the background, in
Mhm.
these kind of subcultures on the internet.
Yeah.
And now it's becoming like a mainstream thing to where they're trying to build up that excitement for everybody. And then it drops, and all of a sudden, here we are talking about it. I know folks and all over Reddit, Twitter, forums, they're talking about it just like we are. So I'm excited.
Yeah. So, brief explanation of how this all happens.
Yeah.
There's seeded skaters, there's invited skaters, there's world standings and season's best scores that come into account. There's comeback skaters that are assured of events if it's the first time they're using their comeback rule. But starting off with seeded skaters, these are the skaters that are 1 to 6 at Worlds in all four disciplines. They take turns starting with the first place team, second place team, third place team. Within those top three, they make sure that those events are distributed equally so that none of those skaters really face
Go
off
up. Yeah.
in the early season. It's happened before if there's two skaters from one country that it could potentially happen, but what they're ideally trying to do is make these the top skaters in each event rather than it being lopsided and one event having two medalists and the next event having none. So that's what they do there. And then 4 through 6, they do the same procedure. Fourth place team picks their preferred events, fifth, and then sixth gets whatever is left. And then you have seventh to 12th are invited. As long as you're in the top 12 at Worlds, you are assured of two events. I believe in the past, pairs and dance may have been top 10, but I read the press release that the ISU put out today for this Grand Prix series, and it says top 12 in each discipline. I don't know if that's like a little quirk that they didn't really specify and it really is top
Hmm.
10 for them or not, but anyways, that's what it says. And then you have going further down, I think the next in line, if you're looking at the actual rule book, is the comeback skaters. As long as they have not pulled this, if they were previously a world medalist, I think this is what they look at first, or Olympic medalist. They're allowed two events as long as they've never pulled this comeback rule before, or if they were injured or
Yeah.
if they retired or whatever. So then you
Yeah,
have
you
the
only get the one shot. And
yeah.
and I remember back when Gracie used it just to come back for the one event, everyone was really kind of
Cup of
shocked because she
Russia.
wasn't ready. Yeah, she wasn't ready to come back, so it was a really strange choice, and then she wasted it, right?
Yeah,
And then in her subsequent seasons, when she tried to make a more serious comeback, she didn't have that easy
right,
back way in,
right,
other than the pandemic skid America, right? Yeah.
right. Yeah. So after that, you have if you're in the top 24 of the world standings or the season's best scores from the previous year, you're guaranteed at least one event. So this works out really well for most of the disciplines. For pairs, not so much because there's so few
So many
spots
less
available that some of
spots.
the
Yeah.
top teams, because these skaters are guaranteed one event,
Hmm.
we'll talk about it later, but some
And
of these good teams
mhm.
only have one event right now.
And singles versus pairs, pairs has 24 less spots overall
Yeah.
available. And
48
so,
spots and
mhm,
singles have 72. Yeah, so
yep.
big difference.
So,
Um,
yeah.
and of course, we look at as we delve into each of these rosters and each of these grids, there's a lot of TBD spots from the federations, which they're within the rules to hold these spots for skaters that what ends up happening is they hold the spots because they hope the skaters that they haven't assigned yet will get a second event somewhere else before they have to waste the spot on that skater. And then they can give an up and coming skater or maybe a skater that's not so highly ranked, they can give them the TBD spot. We see a lot of those spots still held. Sometimes the federations will just give them back and then it goes
Mhm.
to an alternates list, which is very by the books now. In the last few seasons,
Supposed
they've
to.
gone to
Yeah.
this where if you're first in line and you're not already assigned to the event or your country isn't already maxed out with the three spots, then you are getting this spot. Before it used to be this whole case of there's a list of 10, you can choose from the 10, but then if you choose the 10th place person, then the person who was 11th is now 10th, so you could choose that person next. And,
Or you could be some federations and just completely ignore the rules and there were
yeah.
no repercussions. Yep.
Yeah. And I remember the one year it was 2012, 2013. Caitlin Osman got assigned to Skate Canada and she ended up winning. And then I believe there was a spot at NHK or something that opened up later and you would think that because she already has a win that she would potentially get that spot. She didn't get a second spot. So she was stuck. I think back then they might have still been on 12 points, if not 12 or 15, whatever that was her total for the year because she didn't get a second event. Now they go through this score. Your total score is basically the basis for this alternates list. And as the season starts, these early season events become very important because if somebody were to have a standout skate, they would shoot up to the top of that alternates list and they would be the ones next in line.
Yeah. And it makes these senior Bs a lot more important now,
Yeah,
right? When before it'd be
absolutely.
like just something to go to maybe test out a program, kind of get feedback from the judges. Now it's also to put yourself on this alternates list so
Right.
you can qualify for either your first or second Grand Prix event.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's a big deal. It's a if skaters are coming back or if they're newly formed pairs or dancers or whatever, moving up from
Yeah.
juniors and they were stuck where they didn't get anything, this is the time to shine at one of these early season challengers or
And
senior Bs. And
yeah. And I know we like to complain a lot, but this is actually one of the things I feel like the ISU has done a great job at,
yes, yeah,
establishing firm rules for the Grand Prix, and then just that, making the Senior B circuit really mean something and have a connection to the Grand Prix, other than just kind of being this sub-fall season that
right,
happens in the backdrop. So I really like the way it has worked out today.
right. Well, with
Mhm.
that said, though, with all the TBDs and the federations potentially giving back their spots, what the rosters are right now are not going to be anything near what they are in October. Sometimes the
Yeah.
events stick, and I think last year there
Yeah.
was the men's grid actually stayed very static. I think
Mhm.
for a long time, but then other disciplines, you see the rosters are just depleted, and then you see a completely new set of faces and so, anyways, what we see now is most likely not going to be
Yeah.
what we see in the
Because
fall.
there'll be injury withdrawals, someone will come in, it will kind of shake things up, but we're still going to talk about it as is. And, the order, we're going to go in the typical ISU order, men's, women's, pairs, and then ice dance, which is the most dramatic one, aside from just the usual, just with all the comebacks and the
Right.
way the fields have shaken out. It's really, to me, exciting. So we'll see what
Yeah,
happens
yeah.
with everybody else.
So like we said, we're going to start with the men,
And so let me bring
and
this up.
we're going to pull up the grid and go event by event.
Yeah. Okay, so we should be seeing it now, and this is the men's field, right? I'll leave this up, but Tony, when you start us off.
All right, so start France is the first event this year. Really quick background. It was supposed to be Skate America. There was a problem apparently with securing dates for Skate America during that time, so they made a deal to switch with France. So now France is first, China is second, which typically it doesn't come till later. Canada goes, and then Japan goes, and then America goes. So it's like back and forth between the continents, which makes it much less likely to see back-to-back events for skaters, which we saw a lot of in the
And
past.
mhm. And in the men's, there's just the one skater skating back to back.
Jason Brown,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, and he does the last two events probably so that he can take some time to get into the season. But anyways, looking at France, we have the one TBD spot for them. And right off the bat, I would say it's most likely going to go to Francois Pitot. I don't know how high up he is on the alternates list, but he only has one event right now.
Yeah.
Um, that would seem likely to me. I don't think they're going to throw back that spot and give it up, but that's to me, that's what I would guess.
And they pretty much have like right until the
They,
competition
yeah, and they're
starts to fill it. So
but France is one that will wait until the last minute to
yeah.
play that
Hmm.
spot too. They'll hold
Yep.
on to that TBD all summer long and all early fall. But looking at the top names here, Ilya Malinin starts here, obviously. You also, if you're looking at him, he's in this top tier. And then the skater from the next group, Adam Siao Himfa, obviously skating
Yep.
at home. He was fourth at Worlds, so he's in this next tier. The other top skaters that are here are really Nika Gadza from Georgia, Kyle Mura coming back from injury for Japan, and Lucas Britschke, who's European champion. So this is a pretty stacked field. And there are three Americans, all of which were in the top four on this podium at Nationals last year.
Yeah, and so like I think it's really interesting the way this kind of shaking out, especially the Nomov Torgashev matchup early in the season. I think just for US skating fans, it'll be interesting to see just who comes out. It has been Torgashev, but then he had that bad worlds, really, objectively bad worlds. So he's looking to skate well here and reestablish, no, I am the favorite to be on the Olympic team with Jason and Ilya. I think it's easy to say Jason and Ilya are locks for two
Me
spots right
too.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the podium, it really is Ilya first and then Adam and Cal. That's the way I kind of see it. But, Adam and Cal are, you know, Adam and Cal. So they
Unpredictable.
could
Yeah.
also unpredictable. So they could also not even be top six, right?
Yeah.
Just depending on how they skate that day. But to me, they're the favorites. And then you have Igatze, Selevko, Britschke. I think they would round out the top six, but play spoiler for medals and take advantage of mistakes. I mean, that's more or less that's how I see this one shaking out. But it's a really good field. It's still crazy to me how great all these men's fields are. I don't look at any of these and feel like they're really weak at all.
Yeah. The depth of men's skating, we've talked about it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Because
very,
it's
very
like,
good.
especially after you look at Ilya and Yuma, they're definitely clearly the top two skaters in the world, far and away, in my opinion. And then you have the few that are hunting for the bronze medal, and then this huge group that are just waiting to play spoiler. And it's this huge group here that is just so
Yeah.
deep, and that's what we're
Yeah.
seeing in
And I
the
mean,
Grand Prix.
even we talk about, I mean, we love Yuma so much, but he is such a wild card too. We
Yeah,
hope
yeah,
he's going to
lately, yeah.
be consistent, but he
Yeah.
might as well throw him into this wild card group because really the end of
Mhm.
last season was a mess. And the strength of the short program for him at Worlds is what saved him a world medal. It was close between third to fifth was really close. I think there was 4 points between the three of them. It's a case of you step it up on the right day, and you never know what's going to happen. And there are so many men that
Yeah,
fill that.
it's true.
Going back to what you said though about Torgashev, I think it is very important for him to have a strong fall season because the thing is there's no US man that's really stepping up to say this is going to be my spot. Torgashev was so consistent last year. He went to Worlds. He's outside the top 20 for the second time at Worlds for him. Now, this has to be weighing on his mind. This has to be weighing on
Yeah,
the minds of USFS. So I would think that they're hoping someone steps it up this year, maybe someone like Lucas Broussard, who really showed a lot of potential at the beginning of last year before he was injured. Jimmy Ma's been around, forever, and
yeah,
that's in a good way because he's still skating really well, has a medal from four continents. Any of these guys really could step it up. I think that
yeah.
someone probably just needs to do it in the Grand Prix before they get to nationals and just have this mess of let's figure out who it's going to be. So
Right, because the third spot to me is really up for grabs. If Torgashev had placed top 10 at Worlds, I would have said heavy favorite for that third spot, but he didn't. And so I think it's truly up in the air. It could be any of these US men, that are
yeah,
just right waiting and have had random success and then a lot of not.
yeah.
Hmm.
So that's France. We move to China the next week,
Yeah.
and here is an interesting field. You have Shidorov as world silver medalist. He comes in as the top ranked skater, and
Hmm.
then the next person in the group is Shun Sato. So you have Shidorov surprise silver medalist, and then you have out of the 4 to 6 group, you have Sato who was sixth. I guess you could look at this event as maybe slightly weaker in that sense. And then you look at other medal potential favorites, and
Yeah.
you have Daniel Grassl from Italy, you have Sota Yamamoto from Japan, who does typically very well in the Grand Prix. Junhwan Cha, Denis Vasilyev, you can never count him out. You have two Americans, Camden Polkin is so unpredictable, and Jacob Sanchez, this is his only event for now. And he's coming in as having a very successful junior Grand Prix season and junior world season
Yeah.
last year.
It's
Junior Grand
Camden's
Prix
only event
champion.
too.
Yeah, Camden's only event
Yeah.
too. So very, very hit or miss skaters in this entire field. Like really all the way down the line. You look at Boyang Jin. Last year he was winning short programs in Grand Prix and then in the free skate, I think he was second to last in France in the free
Yeah.
skate. So just it's kind of the story of every skater here. Shun Sato is typically very consistent. Shidorov is wildly consistent with these difficult quad combinations that he started doing. So I think for those two plus maybe Junhwan Cha, those would be the favorites here.
Hmm. And China has kept one of their TBD spots, which I was really confused about. I'm still confused about. I don't know what skater.
There's a few skaters though. There's
Okay, yeah. Well, but even then, it's like I see maybe they're holding on to it, and maybe they're going to have an internal competition to see which of these other more up and coming men to fill that spot with. They're not
yeah,
really trying to hold out to get a second spot for anybody at this point because their major skaters already have
yeah,
spots.
but there's also,
So
if you're looking Dai Wei Dai, he went to Worlds, he qualified the spot for the Olympics for China. It's not his spot, obviously. I think if Boying's healthy, they're gonna try to get him in there. But Dai Wei was
again,
13th at four continents, and then the other two Chinese skaters that went were 15th and 17th,
oh,
uh,
okay.
Zhiming Peng and Yudong Chen. So I mean,
Okay,
they have
so it
skaters
really
that
is
can fill up.
then,
Yeah,
yeah. So between those two, then, yeah,
yeah,
and just even talking about that, this matchup between Dai and Jin, I think is going to be really important because conventional wisdom, someone else qualified this spot that Boyang Jin's going to take. It's
yeah,
almost history repeating itself. I still feel bitter about what happened to Han Yan because he 100% should have gone to the Olympics. He was the better skater, stronger skater,
yeah,
just
yeah,
and he was not the one who lost the spot, the
yeah.
second spot. So. Hoping it is Daiwei because to me, Boyang's been on a downward trajectory. His skating's not getting any better. To me, it's regressed. But we'll see, right? I feel like this will be an important matchup. See.
Yeah. So Skate Canada is next. It is in Saskatoon. Looking at
Mhm.
this field, Ilya's back. So Ilya's doing first and third events. He's done with his Grand Prix season, at least
Yeah,
the preseason.
probably what he wants at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Chill for the rest. Prepare for the Grand Prix final, which assuming he's going to make it.
Yeah.
Uh, the next skater that would be ranked is Kevin Amos from France, and then you have Igadza again, and then you have Kalmura again, and who else in
I
this
think
field?
I
That's
think Tomono could play spoiler too with that.
Tomono always
He'll
does
he'll be that
decent.
consistent fourth, fifth place, but he
Yeah,
could come in and take that, podium spot. I Selevko too, depending on what form he shows up in, if he does he land those two quads or not.
Broussard
Um,
is there. We don't know how he is since last year Skate America. He went into Skate America as potentially a huge spoiler, but the short program he injured himself and then he was out for the rest of
oh
the
yeah.
season. So we don't really know where he's at. But he scored really well last year in the early season. So he's another one based on where he's at. He could play spoiler for at least the top five or six. You have the three Canadian men here. Gogolev is back. Alexa Rakic is back. Roman Sadovsky, who
Right.
earned the spot for Canada from Worlds. Roman is the only one that has two spots. And then also
Rightly
Wesley
so.
Chu doesn't have any events, who was injured last year. So I would be
Yeah.
I
I'm
would be interested.
surprised Skate
Yeah.
Canada didn't hold on to one of these TBDs just for that reason.
Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe Wesley is not going to be ready in time for that. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's strange to me though because he looked like he was going to lead Canadian skating, and
Right.
then he had the injury, so he's out.
And I think it's very likely, looking at this field, that the Canadian men finish 10, 11, 12.
Mm,
It's very possible to me. Like maybe
Samoylov might
one.
help a little
Yeah,
bit, depending,
exactly.
but
Yeah.
he's another one, finishing like fourth or third in the short program at Europeans, and then 20th in the free skate. I think he's been final group before, and then like completely
So he'll
tanked the
fit
free
in right
skate.
with the Canadian men.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, they're unpredictable, all four of them, let's say. But
Yeah.
also, I skipped over Memela. Nikolai Memela is also here, and
Mhm.
he could play spoiler as well, depending on which quads he shows up with. I know we talked about him learning and trying quad flip at World Team Trophy. I saw him land it at Worlds, so that's another thing he could add to his Lutz is that he already does. But otherwise, yeah, I think those are the top six or seven for the event, and then you have everybody else kind of scrambling for the other spots. Moving on to NHK Trophy, this
Right.
one is historically always pretty strong event. Kageyama, he starts his season here. You have him as top ranked skater. You have Shun Sato as the 426 skater. Then you also have Junwan Cha and Lucas Britschke. Those are the top four on paper. But then you also have Matteo Rizzo
Mhm.
and
And coming
Wang
back from
Jin.
injury
Yeah,
last
yeah,
year, and he's been a fairly consistent skater, consistently medaling here and there, never really vying to like win, but again, could play spoiler to some of these other skaters depending on, the form he comes back in.
yeah.
Consistent quad toe usually when he was skating,
Mhm.
quad loop-ish. It's kind of how I would describe his quad
Yeah,
loop.
yeah,
Yeah, like most people with a quad loop.
yeah.
Yeah. But this is the one too where you see another U.S. men's matchup for those hunting for that third spot. Ma and Torgashev. So that'll be really interesting to see who comes out on top there. Torgashev has these two matchups where he's going up against rivals in both his Grand Prix that he needs to beat. He has to beat both of them to keep that momentum that he
Mhm,
started last season
mhm.
or
You have,
regain it really.
yeah, you have. I mean, looking at this field though altogether, you have also Frangipani who
Hmm.
does well in early season events typically. You have also a TBD for Japan. I don't think looking at everybody that's already assigned, it doesn't look like there's anyone that would be a really strong
Right.
contender that would get assigned. Maybe an up and coming skater. I know the world
Hmm.
junior champion is not old enough yet, so he's going to be back on the junior circuit.
And
Um,
maybe they're waiting for someone to even just get one spot so that they can give them the second too.
Yeah, that too.
You
I'm
could see
sure. I
that.
mean, I don't know the alternates list, but I'm sure that there's a few Japanese skaters that are probably pretty highly ranked up on the alternates list. Um, Adam Hagara too. He was a skater that did
Oh
well in
yeah.
juniors, and he was, I believe, like 15th or something at Worlds. He's very consistent.
He's
Very,
gaining a fandom too.
yeah,
So that,
yeah.
yeah.
So pretty good field. I mean, there's not really a super weak link there. But again, very inconsistent skaters within the group. So it could really, besides the top few, it could really go any kind of way after that.
And then there's Skate America,
Very
which still,
interesting. Yeah.
this to me is just like, what's going on here? Like, before we even get to the field, there's one US man assigned, Jason Brown,
Mhm.
and one TBD. They
Mhm.
gave up the third spot.
It doesn't make any sense. That is the first thing I noticed when I looked at these grids. I was like, why are there only two spots? I for a minute I kind of thought, what if they assigned these fields where Skate America was the first event and then they never switched it around because there's three men at in France, the first event now, and there's only two US men
Yeah,
at the home
because it's
event.
just so confusing because it's like there are some US men here with one spot. There's two, right? Nomov and
Yeah.
Pulkkinen. No, it's three, and
And Sanchez.
Sanchez.
Yeah.
So essentially, they could have guaranteed one of these men, or sorry, more than one of these men, a second spot.
Yeah. Two
Decided
out of
not
the
to.
three could have gotten a second event. You look,
Just
Italy, out of all countries, Italy has three men in this event. France has two, Japan has two. Like it makes really no sense that they did. I mean, I don't know what trading was involved. As far as
right.
I know, I don't see any new rules that say that the host country doesn't get the three spots. I mean, look at Skate Canada. They're a much weaker country results wise, and they have the three spots. China has their three spots, so there's no reason that the US shouldn't have had three spots. I don't know what happened there. I really
Right? And if they're
don't know.
trying to boost up Jason, there really isn't a threat amongst these other men to Jason if he skates relatively clean. Like they he doesn't even need a
Yeah.
quad to beat all the other US
Yeah,
men
I
with
don't
one
know.
spot.
I don't know.
He doesn't even need a triple axle to beat all the other
Yeah.
with one
But it is
spot.
even with the lack of US men, it is a pretty decent field.
Yeah.
Kevin Amos and Mikhail Shidorov. Those are the two that are top six at Worlds. Then Jason would be in the next
Mhm.
group. Daniel Grassel is there. Daiwei Dai gets his second event there, which makes me kind of just want to go for that because I think he is really one of the up and coming skaters that will be big time, hopefully. Um, and then Memela's there again. I mean, the field is pretty decent, but it does look like Shidorov, Amos, Brown would
Yeah, I
be
think so too.
probably
And then like Shidorov is the favorite, but I wouldn't say as a really strong favorite considering how well Amo has skated on the Grand Prix,
in Skate
especially at Skate
America.
America,
Yeah.
yeah, the past few years. So if he skates like he did, I could see him just easily walking away with this because unless the judges are giving Shidorov really high PCS early in the season, which
Hmm.
they haven't been doing, but
Hmm.
now that he's a world silver medalist, who knows? To
Yeah.
me, that's the biggest unknown.
Right. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some. Well, you know what? I don't want to say that because Adam Himfa did not have great programs this year, I don't think. And his PCS was very conservative. Even so, it was still in the mid eights, which
Yeah.
Shidorov was not at that level yet. So I guess they can boost him up to that kind of level as a world medalist. I do think there's going to be some kind of boost, and I'm sure he's going to come back with an even crazier uh, jump layout. I mean, I kind of questioned because he really could do a triple axel half loop quad sal, and he could do a triple axel quad toe in his program. He really could do that.
Mhm.
Depending on what other quads he wants to repeat, if he's going to repeat them, it might not be so smart to repeat the triple axel. But based on what he was doing last year, he could have done that. Now I know it's a big ask. It's not just like, oh, please just go do it. But he got so consistent with those jumps, and the GOEs were off the charts. So I don't know why he doesn't do that. Anyways, that's more to talk about for pre-event. But going
Yeah.
in, yeah, that looks like those are the three that will lead the way. And then finally, we have Finlandia. This is the event that took over for Russia when they dropped from the
And
Grand Prix.
this is another random one where Finland assigned no Finnish men, but held on to one TBD spot.
Yeah, so that's interestingly that's confusing to me because you have Walter Virtanen who's a doctor and he's also still competing. As far as I know, he's still in there trying to skate. So I would assume he would get a spot once again. And then you have Makar Suntsev, who's another younger skater for Finland that was also at the event last year. Between the two of them, I'm guessing one of them is no longer competing or
Okay.
something because I tried to reach out to Sunsub actually before we did this video because I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
Right.
You would think
And
they
this
would
could
want
be a
the spots.
ploy to get one of them a second spot,
I don't think
depending if they get
so.
picked up on one of the other GPs. But exactly, like
No,
it feels so strange. So I'm not really understanding this
no.
100%. Like
Yeah.
even considering that. Yeah.
So you have, like we said in the beginning, Jason Brown is doing back-to-back events. He's going from
Mhm.
the middle of nowhere in Lake Placid, which is going to require a long drive to get to the
I
airport, and then he's going
know.
to Finland.
Unless
So
someone charters a private plane for him.
yeah, or I mean, I guess they could. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's the only one that I see on this entire men's list. I think maybe across all the disciplines that is doing back-to-back events. Looking at the favorites, Kageyama's second event,
Mhm.
Adam Siao Himfa's second event. So Adam's doing first and last event. And then also you have the strongest competitors otherwise are going to be Matteo Rizzo, Yamamoto. I guess Dennis Vasilyevs, you can never really count him out.
Yeah, he's going to
Uh,
be some level of right. Yeah,
yeah.
and he could just if everyone's getting poorly, he could jump in there.
Yeah. And then Jimmy Ma, I mean, he gets a second event. Jimmy Ma probably would have gotten nothing this year if it weren't for Four Continents. And then he comes away with
Right.
bronze medal at Four Continents. So I'm very happy to see that he's back on the Grand Prix. I don't think he got assignments last year, but he's back with two this year. So, anyways, general thoughts. I mean, it's you look at there's wild inconsistency. Literally, Kevin Amos could go to any event and he could win or he
Right.
could finish last place. Like that is the reality of where his skating is at. So when we talk about
Right.
who the favorites are, obviously this is just on paper and who tends to do well in these events. But you're looking at, Shidorov looks like he has a pretty easy way into the final. Malinin will be there for sure. I'm sure Kageyama, based on the strength of at least one of his two programs, will hold him up enough to be in there.
Yeah. And
Um,
there's no field here, in at least in the men's, that screams super weak field. Like usually in the Grand Prix, there's something like that. One feels really stacked, one feels really weak.
yeah.
But this feels fairly evenly distributed. Obviously not perfectly, can't be,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I really like how the fields are shaking out. There's going to be some type of competition in each one, at least for like the podium. And even then, sub competitions between skaters from the same country that are trying to establish themselves, especially with the US for the fall body of work. That's going
Yeah.
to be really important to get that third spot. Yeah, it's a really good field to me in the way everything is shaken
Yeah.
out.
All right, so that wraps up the men. Now we're going to move into the women's field.
Yeah, so just a few observations first though. Like, so before we get into that, I just noticed a few things here. Like, Lona's back, and she got NHK in Finlandia, and I know there was some debate of whether she would actually qualify as a comeback skater because she skated at Shanghai Trophy last year,
Hmm.
which she got what she qualified for season's best ranking in that, but you don't get ranking points.
Something like that.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so however how it shook out, it was deemed that didn't count, and she could be a comeback skater because otherwise she should only have one spot.
Hmm.
Um, so she got to come back to the comeback, and she has NHK in Finlandia. And then a weird one too is Gia Shin, only one Grand Prix, even though she's now a four times in a row junior world medalist, making
Not
her
not only not only that, but she's a two-time senior Korean national champion, and last year
right.
she was second place. So this is someone that could go in on her first season and make the Grand Prix final. So
Yeah, for real, exactly. So her
yeah,
getting one spot is strange, but I could also see Feds not being super eager
yeah,
to invite
yeah.
someone who's going to beat their skaters.
And let's be clear, as a world junior medalist, you're not guaranteed anything. So,
Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, I think at one point they were guaranteed at least one event. Now it just goes on this season's
World
best world
ranking.
ranking, and
Yeah.
then that's it. So, yeah.
And then Elsie Lynn Gracie, she early fall season last year, she was beating world medalists, all this stuff, coming in, almost make it seems like she's the new anointed one. It ended up being Amber just killing it until, she had the fall in the short program at Worlds. But
Mhm.
yeah, she has two Grand Prix again. So that'll be interesting to see if she has this redemption fall season. But I don't think she's going to get this boost like everyone was ready to give her last year. This is definitely something she'll have to work up into and prove herself. The judges, I don't think they're going to give her a pass. Um, but yeah, so Grand Prix France, to me, it's a really strong field. Kaori, Rino Sumiyoshi, Cheon Kim, Isabeau, Vito, like already Petrokina, we're naming a lot of people who could easily medal in a championship here, right? And
Right. Yeah.
so I'm interested to see how this will shake out. I think clearly Kaori's the favorite, but not a strong favorite considering her form last year was weak all the way until Worlds. I don't think she had a strong skate until Worlds, right? Like it's kind of
Yeah.
my recollection.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. But also France held on to two TBD spots.
And
So
last year they filled them. Um,
yeah.
I would assume one is going to Leia Serna. She only has one
Hmm.
event right now. And then remember last year, Clemens Mayendu ended up going to Grand
Mm,
Prix France as like a local favorite and not competitive at all, but they actually did use the spot. I don't know what my Bernays Meite's status is. I don't know if she's trying to come back still.
yeah, she hasn't been
Um,
skating for like 3 years, right?
she
2 3 years.
she hasn't been. I think she's tried to compete and then she's had injuries. I don't know what her
Yeah.
status is. If she's even potentially a TBD, but I do think that they'll use those spots. But like you said, yeah, you have Kaori Sakamoto in this event. You have Ryan Sumiyoshi, Cheon Kim, who was looking to be like a world medalist last year.
Hmm.
I think she finished 10th or 11th at Worlds, so not the result she wanted.
Right. And then I didn't mention her, but she's had a lot of success in the past. But Young Yu, she's been
Yeah.
really inconsistent with
Hmm.
rotations. It's really kind of
Hmm.
held her back these past few seasons. But she could come in, play spoiler, and then even that, just skaters we like to watch, like Livia Kaiser. I love
Yeah.
watching Livia
Yeah.
Kaiser. Just I don't know why.
Yeah.
And then even like Ami Nakai, right, could come in and play
Mhm.
spoiler. So this is a pretty deep field, just and a ton full of skaters waiting to take advantage of mistakes from the top skaters.
Mhm.
Hmm. And
And
then
yeah, let's go to China. I mean,
hmm
again,
also another one held on to
yeah,
two TBD spots.
yeah, and the weird thing to me is why are you I'm actually just figuring this out right now, but you have a skater in Jiang Yan who went to Worlds and didn't qualify for the free skate, but she's not assigned to anything, and you're assigning Yi Zhu, Beverly, the skater who went to the Olympics for China in 2022 and had she did not have a good Olympics. She did not qualify for the free skate in the individual competition. She really was not strong in the team event, and she got a lot of backlash from the Chinese public during the
American public too
and the American public too, you know. So
for changing countries. Yeah.
right. So it's interesting that she's the only named skater so far for China.
And I wonder if it's another thing to where they're waiting to see if one of these other
Um
skaters gets a
yeah.
Grand Prix
Yeah.
so they can give them that second one. But even then, I don't think they're even high enough in the ranking or
She
the
might
seasons.
be she might be
Yeah,
close.
okay.
I'm not sure.
But
Um
maybe hoping on the fall season to get a high score too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I see this as a pretty strong field because you're seeing the Amber Alyssa matchup. I didn't expect to see one really.
In
I thought
China
in
too.
China, I know, right?
Let's think about this. As we said, the top three skaters in the world, Alyssa is number one. She has first choice of where she wants to go. She is going to skate America, unlike Elia. But then she pretty much has the choice of what second event she wants to go to. There's no Canadian skater in that top group. There's no French skater in that top group. She could have chosen one of those events.
Right. I don't
And
understand why not going to Canada. It's so much easier on her just everything, right? Than
yeah,
to go through and waste pretty much a day and a half, 2 days on the time zone change and everything.
yeah, it's
I don't get
interesting. I
it.
mean, maybe
Unless she
she,
just wanted a
yeah,
vacation because
exactly.
that's how she is. She's a I'm here for the moment. I'm here for the experience.
Yeah.
I don't Has she competed in China before aside from
I don't think so because she only
no,
had one
right?
Grand Prix season before she retired, and she did. I know she did for sure NHK, and I forget what the other event was that year, but I
And
don't think
maybe
it was
she just wants
China.
to go have fun and nerd out in China, and that's why she did it. And
Yeah,
I'm here for that because we get this matchup. So
yeah,
thank
yeah.
you,
We get
Alyssa.
that, but then
Thank you, Amber, for both choosing Cup of China.
you look at this event though, and this is actually a stacked event. Really, it is. Jiaxin
Really.
is her only one event that we talked about. This is her event. We don't know what she's going to do in
And
seniors.
I put here 7 skaters fighting for the bronze, literally,
Absolutely.
and that's to
Every
me really exciting.
and then
And the Amber Alyssa matchups. It's probably the
yeah,
best Grand Prix, really, for the
yeah,
women.
yeah, and then
Yeah,
you know
and
the
it's
Chinese
China.
skaters
It's
are
never a
looking
Cup of China.
the Chinese skaters are looking at 10th, 11th, and 12th pretty much
Yeah,
because it's
so
just this
pretty
field
much.
is very,
Hmm.
very strong. And
It's
this
like
is
Skate
really going to
Canada.
make or break a lot of skaters as far as the finals go. Um,
Yeah.
so that'll be exciting. Skate Canada next, Monet Chiba, and then
Hmm.
Isabel Levito would be in the second part of the group.
And they were third, fourth at Worlds, so that's an interesting matchup
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
To me, yeah. Then does Monet Chiba
But
capitalize
then you
on that momentum?
look at this American group of three. This is really I mean, there are five American women basically fighting for these three spots at the Olympics. As far as we see right now, things can change at the beginning of the season, but you're looking at basically skaters in third, fourth, and fifth place in this race, all at this event together. And yeah, Sarah Everhart, really good showing. She was on the podium at Four Continents. Brady Tennell was right ahead of her at Four Continents, both ahead of Alyssa Liu, by the way. Uh, and then you have Isabeau, who was fourth at Worlds, and she's a former
Right.
world silver medalist. So
But
this is
but do you really feel like okay? So it's interesting, right? Because I feel like the whole body of work argument now that we have it creates this huge debate in the U.S. But when I look at this, I don't know. I still feel like the U.S. women's team is really solid. Alyssa, Amber, Isabeau. It would take some major kind of crash and burns from one of those
yeah,
three to somehow lose out.
100%. I mean, I think
Yeah,
that Isabeau would be the most vulnerable, but I think
right.
we were all very surprised that she got to fourth place at Worlds. And I mean, it was pretty
Me too.
close
Yeah.
for the bronze
I was
medal, you
so
know?
surprised
So
at the form she was in, especially
yeah,
considering that kind of monitoring competition she had to go to where
in
she did
Italy. Yeah.
not skate well at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I do think if it's a strong Grand Prix season for those three, most likely nationals, barring one of them finish like eighth or ninth place, I think that those are going to be the three that go to the Olympics. But it
Yeah.
is interesting that those are the three that are facing off against each other, and then you have like the next event is just not really serious. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting they all get put together. But then you look at the rest of the field, and once again, this is a pretty strong field. Nina Pinzeroni, I love her skating. She's seventh at Worlds, uh, European medalist several times now. I think she has the best programs out of anybody. I'll keep repeating it. I
Yeah.
really, really love her skating, and I think that somehow Benoit Richaud has found a way with a skater to really show off the strengths because I think he hit it out of the park.
Well, he usually choreographs for skaters that don't have the best natural movement, aren't the most graceful, don't have great extension. But Pinzerone
Yeah,
doesn't have those issues.
yeah.
So I think that's what we're really seeing. Really knows how to perform, and it's her sensitivity to me
Mhm.
that always just makes me feel it, even when I'm like, those jumps are cheated.
Yeah, yeah. Lara Naki Gutman, on the other hand, maybe not the smoothest mover, but
Hmm.
such cool programs, such big
Yes.
jumps. She's really
I'm
she's
like, please keep Squid Game or do like a version 2. I
yeah,
would love to see
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, again, three Japanese women, Yuna Aoki, really, really beautiful skater. Mone Chiba, obviously world medalist now. Ami Nakai, again, this is her second event. The three Americans. Then you look at even there's a open Canadian spot. I don't know who it would go to. Maybe Kaya Reuter. I'm not sure. But you look at the other two, Dupuis and Schizis. Sarah Maud was actually ahead at Four Continents. So there's a little bit of a battle
Yeah.
brewing between those two as well. Now, Madeline has been like 11th, 12th, 13th at Worlds for the last four, like the entire Olympic cycle. She's been almost right there to getting two spots for Canada. She hasn't done it yet. Sarah Maud, I think, with the potential of, facing off against her and maybe once again besting her, nationals might be really interesting.
And Canada, in the past has prided itself on using nationals to pick the Olympics and
Not always,
making
though.
fun of, I know, only when it suits them to make fun of,
Yeah,
USFS.
yeah, 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 yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, so like that's interesting. But we're also looking at a field to where, again, I think Canada could find itself with 10, 11, 12
yeah.
placement. Yeah. So that's just that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out because even if they are fighting amongst each other, they're fighting amongst each other of who's the top in the bottom half.
Yeah.
Right.
NHK, one of the most interesting things is that you have Hendricks and Pinzeroni facing off against each other
Yes,
in
the
this event.
Belgian face
Yeah,
up or face off.
because well, remember this is what the situation is with Belgium. Luna would have to be healthy as of September to go to this qualifying competition in Beijing. This is a month before the Grand Prix. This is a
Hmm.
month and a half before NHK Trophy. She would have to go to this event. She would have to qualify within the top six spots to earn a second spot for Belgium to go to the Olympics. Otherwise, these two are competing for one spot for the Olympics. I've seen, and I think you've said that Nina was told, she qualified the spot, it's her spot to lose basically. But if in the event Luna's not ready yet, this can become really a very
And we've
heated
already
battle.
seen how Pinzerone will call it like she sees it.
Yeah.
She's not part of this old school mentality of, oh, we both work so hard. The most deserving person's gonna go. She'll tell you, I deserve to go.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, and I agree with her. I think she deserves to go, even if she loses to
Yeah.
Hendricks in this matchup, because she earned that spot. She's
Yeah.
been consistent. And I have a lot of misgivings about somebody who didn't earn the spot, who was then given a chance to earn a spot, doesn't do it, and then still somehow ends up going.
Right.
I would have so many misgivings about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But to me, that's the biggest matchup here, and we haven't even talked about the favorite. So,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the two favorites, this is an instance where within the 1 to 3 and 4 to 6 grouping,
yeah.
there's skaters both from Japan, so they're both going to skate at home. They're the top ranked skaters. Korei
Mhm.
Sakamoto, three-time world champion, Wakaba Higuchi, 2018 world silver medalist, who was
Mhm. And
eight,
fan favorite
yeah, fan
still.
favorite,
Yep.
back to form at Worlds last year, sixth place. So those two lead the way. And then, once again, looking at the field, it's not quite as deep. I mean, those two
Yeah.
look to be, depending on where Hendricks is and how much they want to boost her scores up. I don't think she's really going to play spoiler to those two. But then you have some
Same.
interesting people in Anna Pezzetta of Italy, massive, massive jumps, not really fully under control. She had a great skate at Europeans in the free skate, and then she went to World Team Trophy, and just from the start, all the jumps were all over the place. So wildly inconsistent, but when she gets the jumps right, it's really something to
Hmm.
see. They're massive. It's really something
And
that's missing in skating these days.
And and just kind of the opposite of like not big jumper, but still a beautiful skater. Kimi Räikkönen, I think it's one of those, depending on her form and the collar, could easily come in and be bronze here.
Hmm.
She is one of my favorite skaters to
Yeah.
watch. For
Yeah.
again, she has long limbs and legs, but knows how to use them.
Yeah.
There was a time when she didn't, but now she does, and it's just so beautiful. I love watching her skating again, even if she's not rotating jumps.
Yeah. You know, Samodelkina of Kazakhstan, who we
Oh,
really
right.
raved about last year, she has big jumps as well, and she actually has an artistic side to her. She
Yeah, she
really
just got
steps up.
buried at Worlds
Yeah, she
with
got buried at Worlds, and
bad
now
PCS and low GOE.
because of that, now she only has one Grand Prix event. So
Yeah.
this is it for her. But she could play spoiler here. I really think that she, with more time in front of the judges, her scores are going to go up because, like you, I do think that she was held back a lot last year.
Hmm.
Young Yu is her second event for Korea. You have Sarah Everhart. Once again, she's an ISU championship medalist from last year. So
Hmm.
she's another one. Big jumps, not really a second mark yet. I want to see what she develops over the summer. If she develops, but she could also, just based on the consistency, she could be right in there as well.
And this is another matchup too, to where you have Elise Lynn Gracie going up against another kind of in that tier US skater, to where do I establish myself as coming back? Do I regain that momentum I started last fall season? And she'll have to prove herself
Mhm.
because right after that fall season, we stopped talking about her and we started talking about Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, it was
So
really
yeah.
at Skate America that we just kind of were like, because she did
Hmm.
not skate well there. Her free skate was okay, but based on what she had done earlier in the year, it looked like she was going to push in there and be somebody
Hmm.
like Alyssa Liu,
And it
who,
seemed like the judges were ready. The judges were ready to give that to her.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So moving on to
Yeah.
Skate America, here, interestingly, again, and I think this is actually maybe not the worst thing on USFS part, but Alyssa Liu is the only American skater named. There's two to be decided
At
spots.
least there's two TBDs and
Yeah,
not
at
just the
least they're
one.
using them. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but looking at everybody else that's been assigned, every single woman has two events so far. So they could really use the summer to monitor and
Hmm.
see who's really deserving of those spots and give them the
And
opportunity.
and it's another field where like after Alyssa, everything's really stacked and bunched together. Like the podium is gonna feel so random to me.
Yeah, but I mean,
What?
I know Alyssa has skated so well at Worlds, and then she followed it up with World Team Trophy, amazing again. I wouldn't say she's a shoo-in in this field at all. It's very, very
Mm,
deep. You think?
she still needs to skate well, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
because
Chaeyoung
Higuchi,
Kim, yeah,
Jaehyun Kim,
Higuchi,
yep,
Chaeyoung Kim, Rinko Watanabe,
Watanabe. Hmm.
Hana Yoshida. I mean, this Hyan Lee, like it's another stacked field where you're really going to be at least one of them will hit completely, probably two. So everyone's going to be have to be at the top level, I think, to really get onto the podium here.
And then who's really up for these TBDs? Because when I'm looking here, I can see them. Has two.
Everyone has two, yeah.
Everyone has two. So who's waiting in the wings to maybe get assigned a spot, and then USFS can throw them a second, and then
It's
maybe they're just trying to assign it to one, then just giving somebody experience, someone coming up, just to kind of get them that experience before the next Olympic cycle.
mhm.
But they held on to two, so they clearly have something in mind, and just waiting to figure out which two they want to assign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking
Um,
at, okay, so I mean, otherwise, again, every single field is so stacked. You have three Japanese
yeah.
women in almost every field, I think in every field, and that alone is like a competition in
Yeah.
itself. Five of the top six Grand Prix final qualifiers last year, I think
Oh,
seven of
that's
the
right. That's
top
right.
nine in
Amber
the
won.
Japanese.
How everyone talks about Amber won Japanese nationals.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, every field is going to be stacked just based on that alone. Okay, so finally, Finlandia, three finished spots, only one is assigned.
And they held on to two.
Linnea Sedeur, I think she would be the one that would get the assigned spot, but hopefully, I mean, what I think they're hoping for is that she gets another spot elsewhere, and then maybe they can give her a second spot in
Mhm.
Finland. I'm not really sure. Looking at who the top skaters are, though, you have Monet Chiba and you have
Amber
Amber
Glenn.
Glenn,
Hmm.
yes, and then you have Luna, depending on where she's at, we don't know. Nina Petrokina, obviously a European champion, so she can deliver.
Sumiyoshi.
Sumiyoshi
Hmm.
Matsuike. I mean,
Hmm.
I mean, every field. Last year was so shocking because you have all these deep fields and it ended up being really just a Japanese blowout. Really,
Yeah.
it was kind of like the Russians with Tutberidze, where they were just on the podium in every single event and they were stacking the final in those
Mhm.
days. We didn't really expect it last year because of the unpredictability of the fields. It could go that way again this year, but there's so many other directions it can go. I think there's probably
Yeah.
12, 13 women that are potentially in there to make the final, depending on the day and depending on, these fields are so stacked. You have a bad day, you're not finishing second instead of first, you're finishing sixth or seventh. So it's going to be imperative for all of them
Mhm.
to stay consistent between both.
Which I think for skating today is really exciting because how you skate in some competitions in the past just didn't really matter. And we've
Right.
seen that
Right.
like winning world titles with like a bunch of falls, depending on
Yeah.
skater.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just really exciting. And it's so funny because I wrote my note here that this was the weakest field, but even just talking about it, I'm like, but it's not a weak field,
Yeah. It's just not
right?
as,
It's
yeah.
just the least exciting in terms of matchups. There's
Yeah.
nothing where you're really kind of like it's not like an Amber Alyssa type, right? Or a Lona and Nina matchup. You're not
Right.
seeing anything like that, but it's still a great field. And then Tanel, we didn't really talk about her, and I think she's still a really unknown quantity. We've known what she's capable of skating like. She just hasn't skated like that in years.
I
And is this
mean,
the
poor
year where it
continents.
comes back? But it wasn't like that old form where you felt this confidence, you felt like her jumps were good
Yeah.
and rotated.
Yeah.
That's not there. To me, everything still feels a little bit of like a struggle, right?
Yeah, I
She's
mean,
skating
I
bad.
remember she was really, really in good shape the season of COVID, and I think she made the Grand Prix final that year, if I'm not wrong, and she was looking like she was really going to break through, and she just had better programs, and uh, it looked like that was it for her. I think she had two really big misses in her programs last year. So some people love both of them. I don't know. The river dance thing, the marching in place on the steps, it just looks so juvenile, and I'm sorry, but it didn't look right. And she already has weak steps to begin with. They're always scored like level two, maybe sometimes level three on a good day. It just
Yeah.
accentuated how bad they were. And then you go to the free skate, and I mean, everybody skates to Nessun Dorma, Turandot, and it makes them look artistic. And with her, I still saw like this kind of jagged movement around the ice, and
Hmm.
it honestly
That's
surprised
what I
me how
saw a
much
lot.
I didn't
Just
love it, you
that,
know?
right? Just
Yeah.
know that, like, yeah. And there's this joke in 30 Rock. It's called normaling, It's almost like let's go so weird, but now normal is weird. And I feel like
Yeah.
is that what Benoit did? He's like,
Yeah.
let's be so avant-garde by being normal.
Yeah, well, for the free
Did
skate,
not
because
land for
that
me.
short program and those steps, oh my God, no, just
Oh, that was like the 90s normal.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, come on, like she's had some really cool short. She's had two short programs
Yes,
that I
yeah.
really loved, and this was just not it. So, anyways, she's another one though. She skates clean. I don't know that her ceiling is as high as a lot of these other skaters we're
Yeah.
talking about,
Hmm.
but you can never count her out. And in looking at this field, yeah, it would only take like mistakes by one or two of them, and she could potentially sneak her way in there for a medal. So. Yeah, but looking, I don't think anyone's completely safe. I would say Corey is probably going to do well enough that she's in there. I want to say Alyssa is too, but it really depends on the summer. She going into Worlds, no one ever thought she was going to win Worlds. So it's
Right.
this one event, and then she followed it up wonderfully at World Team Trophy, but I still don't think she's as much of a lock.
Yeah.
Amber too. You look at how her season ended last year; it wasn't quite how she wanted. So it's just going to take one of these bad skates for any of them, and they're out. So I don't want to predict anything yet. For all we know, it will be six Japanese women, which almost happened last year. That it's just so stacked with them. But yeah, again, exciting. Almost every field. It's like top eight could go any direction. There's the favorites, but
It really is. And it's so funny to think about because we just talked about, men's and the women's fields and how exciting it is and how well all the assignments kind of shook out. And it's still not even the most exciting
yeah,
one to me, you
yeah,
know?
it's not.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and we'll talk about that in the next video, but we get to pairs and ice dance. But I'm excited for the season already, and I know it's only June, and we've got months away, and we got to fill that void.
Yeah,
But
it's
this is
something. It's
shaking
something
out
to look
really
forward
well,
to. Yeah, I know it's something to
especially all the
analyze to death.
matchups.
Yeah, and
Yep.
I'm sure that I'll go and like do the math of who I think will qualify and all that. I always
Yeah, we'll do that too, right?
yeah,
We'll closer to the events, we'll have like
yeah,
our predictions, and we'll see
yeah.
how wrong we are, or
Yeah.
how very wrong we are, depending on the day.
Just really quick, because I did make a while ago when I was trying to figure out the Grand Prix assignments, I was assigning everybody where I thought they would be, and a few surprises that I think are not there. Julia Sauter, I'm surprised she didn't get at least one event.
Oh
Um,
wow.
Maybe Kristen Spores from Great Britain not getting at least one event. I thought Samelda Kina would get two. She only has one right now. Maybe someone like, Mikutina from Austria. I thought maybe she would get one like Skate America. I don't know if she's maybe not high enough this year in the
Yeah, because there's
rankings.
a Canadian skater I'm actually not familiar with, and it's probably just my
Yeah,
fault.
Catherine Medlin Spence, she did really
Yeah,
well at one of her internationals last year, and I'm pretty sure that maybe
a
put her in
season
the top
best.
24 on the season best.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. That is the one surprising name though on there because that was not somebody that did it in a larger scale event. It was, I
and
think,
flew under the radar because
yeah.
we probably weren't paying attention. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Other than that, no, not very many surprises. Everything kind of fell into place where I thought it would. Uh, yeah, and that's it for that. So this is the end of this video because if we keep talking, the video is going to end up 3 hours long. But that wraps
right.
up the men and the women for the Grand Prix assignments for 2025. The next video, we are going to focus in on the pairs and the crazy world of dance. So for now, thank you for watching. I'm Tony Wheeler.
And I'm Thomas Vu.
Have a good day and remember to watch part 2 of this video.
Bye.